What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information, but it's pretty sick what that man did.
There's a lot of important people that were on that list, right?
Right.
A lot from all over the world.
Right.
Politics,
Music,
music,
actors.
You saw the list is out, dog. No ass right there.
Just like Trump and Pam Bondi promised, the Epstein files are finally dropping, but not in the way people expected. Instead of one explosive list, the truth is trickling out piece by piece. And while the public are still connecting the dots, some celebrities didn't stick around to find out. That's right. Since the leaks began, A-listers have been mysteriously leaving the country. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing is way too suspicious. Let's get into it.
It looks as though the first phase of the Epstein files have been released, and to be honest, it doesn't really look like much.
First things first, the long-anticipated release of the Epstein files has, quite frankly, been a massive letdown. Attorney General Pamela Bondi, in partnership with the new FBI Director Kash Patel, made it very clear that this administration is committed to full transparency. According to Bondi, these files are only the beginning. There are still thousands of pages that haven't been disclosed yet. Given the hype surrounding these documents, one would expect a trove of bombshell revelations, but instead we were handed a handful of flight logs and a suspiciously redacted masseuse list. If anything, this release has raised more questions than answers. Why were certain names concealed? What exactly is the FBI holding back? And most importantly, will the public ever get the full truth? This is only making people more convinced that some big names are being protected. If they were trying to shut down conspiracy theories, this half-baked disclosure did the exact opposite. Now, folks are more suspicious than ever, and some influencers have even called the release a nothing burger.
DOJ, they handed it over to all of these social media influencers who went online and shared the information, but then it really turned out to kind of be what some are calling a nothing burger.
Now here's where things get really suspicious. Just as these files were released, some celebrities conveniently left the country. We're talking about A-listers who normally love to be in the spotlight suddenly going off the grid. One person who has been acting weird is Ellen DeGeneres. The woman who built her empire on kindness has been making headlines for ditching the US in favor of the UK, just as the Epstein files are dropping. Rumor has it she snagged a quaint abode in the picturesque Cotswolds. This could be a coincidence, but given her history of alleged toxicity, power abuse, and those eyebrow-raising celebrity friendships, people can't help but wonder if there's more to her sudden departure. Remember the bombshell reports about her show's toxic workplace culture. Multiple former employees spilled the tea on bullying, intimidation, and a creepy rule about not making eye contact with her. Weird! Ellen eventually apologized but retired from showbiz soon after.
I'm just so sorry that it's come to this.
And let's not forget her infamous friendship with some of the most problematic figures in Hollywood. If there's one person whose name keeps swirling in both the Epstein mess and recent FBI raids, it's Mr. Sean Combs himself. Ellen and Diddy have been tight for years. He's been a frequent guest on her show.
Your birthday party, am I invited?
Yes. Yes, you're definitely invited. I invite you to all my parties, you just haven't seemed to show up to
No, well, is it on the East Coast?
It's pretty clear that she's attended his lavish parties, but we don't know how wild things got. And if you've been paying attention, Diddy's current situation is so messy that it's giving Epstein 2.0. So, if Diddy was involved in some highly questionable behavior, could Ellen have known?
Are you gonna be early for my party?
Yes, I am. No.
No.
You know I have to arrive fashionably late.
All right, not too late though.
Not too late.
According to newly released files from the Justice Department, several celebrities were listed in Epstein's personal contacts. Alec Baldwin, Hollywood's perennial bad boy who can't seem to stay out of the spotlight, was notably one of them. Now, before we clutch our pearls too tightly, it's important to note that being in Epstein's contact book doesn't necessarily implicate Baldwin in any wrongdoing. Epstein was known for collecting high-profile acquaintances like some people collect stamps. However, given Baldwin's history with Epstein, it would seem like the two were friends. During the Comedy Central roast of Alec Baldwin, comedian Adam Carolla called Jeffrey Epstein Alec's best friend.
Your colleagues aren't here because they hate you. And your best friend isn't here because he hung himself in a Manhattan prison cell.
What's shocking is that when the roast finally hit the big screen, that Epstein joke was mysteriously missing. Poof! Naturally, this sent the conspiracy crowd into overdrive. Did Comedy Central get cold feet? Were they worried about lawsuits? Or did Alec request that it should be cut out? Oh, Alec Baldwin and controversy? Name a more iconic duo. I'll wait. This man's resume of public scandals is practically longer than his filmography. Let's not forget the absolute train wreck that was his divorce and custody battle with Kim Basinger. That whole mess put their daughter right in the crossfire, resulting in that infamous voicemail where he called his then 11-year-old a rude, thoughtless little pig. Yikes! The worst part is that it gets so much worse.
Alec Baldwin left his daughter this voicemail when she was 12 years old.
You have insulted me for the last time. You don't have the brains or the decency as a human being. I don't give a damn that you're 12 years old or 11 years old or that you're a child. You have humiliated me for the last time.
It's hard to imagine a father sending this kind of voice note to an 11-year-old. Talk about the worst father of the year. And then, of course, we have the Rust disaster, the tragic on-set shooting that left the cinematographer unalive. Baldwin swore up and down he never pulled the trigger, but the legal system wasn't buying it, slapping him with involuntary manslaughter charges. Though the case was later dropped, the damage was done. His reputation took a massive hit, and public sympathy was iffy at best. When your brand is a mix of anger issues and bad decisions, people tend to side-eye every controversy you land in. Now, when it comes to the Epstein files, Baldwin's name popping up could be completely innocent. Maybe he just had rich people proximity to the guy, like half of Hollywood, but given Baldwin's history of being a magnet for drama and bad press, it's no surprise that folks are connecting the dots. There's another name that was also saved on the Epstein contact list, and that is Michael Jackson. His social circle was always filled with the rich and powerful, so seeing his name in connection with Epstein isn't entirely out of left field. His extravagant lifestyle meant he brushed shoulders with some questionable people. But let's be real, Jackson's own history isn't exactly squeaky clean. His Neverland Ranch was supposed to be a paradise for children, yet it became the focal point of multiple abuse allegations. Though he was acquitted in 2005, his reputation was forever tainted, and public opinion has remained divided. So seeing his name attached to Epstein, a man who built his empire on exploitation, naturally sparked some uncomfortable questions. Was Jackson an actual associate of Epstein, or was his name just thrown in to add more shock value? From court statements, we know that people have met Michael in Epstein's house.
She asked, I met Michael Jackson at Epstein's house in Palm Beach. Asked whether she massaged Jackson. She said, I did not.
The problem is that Jackson's past accusations make any link to Epstein look extremely suspect. Of course, there's always the possibility that Jackson's inclusion is nothing more than just having the contact of a global icon. That could be it, having direct contact with a popular musician as a flex. We don't know whether he was directly involved or not, but given that both he and Epstein were accused of abusing minors, it's understandable why this connection is making people very uncomfortable. Another name drop was that of Mick Jagger. As the iconic frontman of the Rolling Stones, the man basically invented the rock star lifestyle, and his habit of dating women barely out of their teens has always been a choice. His inner circle has been a VIP lounge for the rich, famous, and occasionally shady. So hearing that he might have crossed paths with Epstein, not exactly shocking, but does that mean he was involved, or is this just another round of guilt by association? First, let's talk about Jagger's well-documented interest in much younger women. The man has a dating history that makes you want to double-check some birth certificates. His ex, Melanie Hamrick, was 27 when he got with her, while he was deep into his 70s. Melanie, a former ballerina, is 44 years younger than him. Now, is that illegal? No, but it's normal in Hollywood. And guess what? Epstein's whole business model revolved around men with that exact preference. Powerful, wealthy, and always surrounded by girls half their age. So was Jagger just another celebrity caught up in the chaos? Or was he more involved than we think? That's the million-dollar question. Epstein was obsessed with surrounding himself with A-listers to make himself look untouchable. And let's face it, a rock icon like Jagger would have been the ultimate flex. Right now, it's all speculation, and Mick Jagger's name could have ended up in those files for 100 different reasons. And without receipts, all we've got is a lot of side-eye. Another thing we have to look into is the flight logs, because that's where things get really interesting. Epstein's private jet, aka the Lolita Express, has some very famous passengers over the years. The flight logs from 1991 to 2006 reveal a mix of celebrities, politicians, and high-profile executives taking trips to Epstein's properties. Some of the biggest names: Donald Trump, who flew multiple times in the early 90s, once with his then-wife Marla Maples, their daughter Tiffany, and her nanny. Then there's Bill Clinton, who took multiple flights on the Lolita Express in the early 2000s, always accompanied by Secret Service agents. To be fair, Trump did admit that he never liked Jeffrey Epstein, and the journeys were for business purposes only, which seems to add up.
I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. I was not a fan of his.
And let's not forget Prince Andrew, whose connection to Epstein has already put him in hot water. He was listed as a passenger on a flight in February 1999. Oh, and Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of Epstein's most outspoken victims. She's in the flight logs too, including a trip in 2002 when she was still a minor. Unfortunately, the flight logs that were recently released do not really contain any new names. Some people have even given up on the possibility of getting any shocking information.
I am just tired of the Epstein conversation. We're never getting them, guys, okay? Like, I just feel like this is getting weird, and it's this excitement of, like, obviously people that are implicated in these files are way too powerful, and they're never gonna let it be released.
There are also some mysterious entries. Some passengers were listed only as one male or two females, making it impossible to know exactly who they were. And considering Epstein's very specific pattern of trafficking underage girls under the guise of massages, those vague entries raise a lot of questions. Speaking of massages, let's talk about how the files also included a 95-page contact book that, surprise, surprise, had an entire section titled Masseuses. But here's the kicker: the entire list is redacted to protect the potential victims' identities. I mean, just look at this document. What was the point of releasing it in the first place? We're talking 254 entries. That's right, over 250 names linked to Epstein's infamous massages. Now, we don't know if there are repeat names on that list, but even if there were, that's still a staggering number. Let's not forget what the allegations were. Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell lured young girls under the pretense of giving massages, which quickly turned into abuse. So when you see 254 entries on a list of masseuses, that's not a spy catalog, that's evidence. Another weird thing about these documents is that Pam Bondi demanded all Epstein-related documents, but the FBI initially handed over only 200 pages. Then, they suddenly admitted that there were thousands more they somehow forgot to include. Right, because the FBI totally just forgets thousands of pages of evidence connected to one of the biggest scandals in modern history. Now Patel is investigating why those files weren't immediately turned over. Also, the so-called release appears incomplete. If the FBI truly had nothing to hide, why redact the masseuse list? Why offer just 7 flight logs when it's well documented that Epstein's network spanned decades and involved countless trips? The lack of meaningful new information makes it seem like authorities are buying time, hoping public interest fades before any real accountability takes place. This drip feeding of selective information only strengthens the belief that the justice system is shielding high-profile individuals from scrutiny. Instead of a transparent reckoning, it feels like another calculated attempt to control the narrative. If authorities were serious about exposing the full extent of Epstein's operations, we would have received a comprehensive and unredacted set of files, not this watered down version. What do you think? Were these celebrities just casually linked to Epstein, or is there more to the story? Is the media hiding the truth, or is this all just speculation? Drop your thoughts in the comments.